The misunderstanding between James and Tu Diep was resolved. Tung cooperates with the police and betrays John. The storm had finally passed. Tu Diep stood in the dim light of the old cafe, her eyes filled with quiet sorrow. Across the table, James sat still, his hands trembling slightly as he held the letter that had torn them apart. For weeks, suspicion and silence had consumed them both. He thought she had betrayed him. She thought he had stopped believing in her. But now, the truth lay bare between them. "It was never me," Tu Diep whispered, voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you." James looked up, guilt washing over him like a flood. "I know," he said softly. "I was wrong. I should have trusted you." Tears welled up in her eyes, and just like that, the wall between them crumbled. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the city, betrayal brewed. Tung paced nervously in the police station, the weight of his decision pressing on his chest. He had always been loyal to John, the man who had pulled him from the streets, given him a purpose. But now he saw clearly, John had gone too far. The lies, the violence, the crimes that had to stop. "I'll do it," Tung said at last, voice low but firm. "I'll testify. I'll give you everything." The detective nodded solemnly. "You're doing the right thing." As the net tightened around John, the echoes of loyalty and love clashed with the sting of betrayal. For James and Tu Diep, the truth had set them free. But for John, a new chapter of justice was about to begin, written by the very man he once called brother. Chapter 2. The Fall of Shadows. Night fell over the city like a velvet curtain, pierced only by flickering streetlights and the occasional echo of sirens in the distance. James and Tu Diep walked, side by side in silence, the tension between them now replaced by a fragile sense of peace. The past still haunted them, but they knew they had to look forward. They had come too close to losing each other to let history repeat itself. "I just want the truth now," James said, his voice low. "No more secrets," Tu Diep nodded. "Then we face it together. All of it." Across town, John sat in his warehouse office, oblivious to the storm gathering around him. He trusted Tung like a brother. They had built an empire of shadows together, one favor at a time, one threat at a time. Loyalty had always been their currency. But loyalty, like anything in the underworld, had its limits. That night, Tung handed over everything: the ledgers, the routes, the names, and with each signature and recording, the weight on his conscience grew heavier. "I owe him my life," he said to the lead officer, almost like a confession. "But I can't let him destroy others too. Save himself." At dawn, the police moved in. John's arrest was swift, almost anticlimactic. No gunfire, no chase, just flashing red and blue lights, and the cold click of handcuffs. As he was led away, he saw Tung standing behind the officers, his face pale and full of sorrow. "You," John hissed, eyes burning. "You did this." Tung couldn't answer. His throat tightened as guilt and regret warred inside him. "I loved you like a brother," John spat. "You should have killed me instead." The betrayal cut deep, but deeper still was the truth. Tung hadn't acted out of vengeance. He had acted out of love for the people John hurt, for the lives they had ruined, and maybe, just maybe, for the man John used to be. Later that morning, James received a call. "It's over," the detective said. "John's been taken in. Tung's safe." James turned to Tu Diep, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time in a long while. "It's really over." "No," she replied gently, taking his hand. "It's just beginning." Chapter 3. New Dawn. Old Wounds. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in hues of gold and ash. James stood on the balcony of his apartment, the city stretching endlessly beneath him. It felt quieter than usual, as if the arrest of John had silenced something that had been growling beneath the surface for far too long. Inside, Tu Diep sat on the couch, holding a photo in her hands. It was old, creased at the corners. In it, she stood between James and John, all three of them laughing. A different life, a different world. "He wasn't always a monster," she whispered when James came back inside. James glanced at the photo. "I know," he said, "but the man he became, he left us no choice." T. Diep nodded, her eyes glistening. "Do you think he'll ever forgive Tung?" James sighed, leaning against the wall. "Maybe, one day, but I don't know if Tung will ever forgive himself." At the same time, in a holding cell downtown, John sat hunched over the table, his fingers interlaced tightly, knuckles white. Across from him, a detective slid a folder forward. "Your empire's gone, John. Tung gave us everything. You still have a choice: cooperate, and maybe salve yourself a decade behind bars." John chuckled bitterly, refusing to open the folder. "Everyone's got a price, huh? Even Tung." The detective leaned forward. "He didn't do it for money. He did it because he couldn't live in your shadow anymore, and because people were dying." John's jaw clenched. "He could have talked to me. He tried. You stopped listening years ago." Back at James's place, Tung arrived unexpectedly. His face was tired, worn by sleepless nights and heavy truths. T. Diep opened the door, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she embraced him tightly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything." James nodded, stepping forward. "You did the right thing, even if it hurt." Tung looked down. "It still hurts." He looked at me like I killed something sacred. "You didn't," T. Diep said gently. "You just refused to let it rot any further." There was silence. Then James added, "He might never forgive you, Tung, but you saved lives. You gave us a future." Tung's eyes flicked to the horizon beyond the window. The sky had brightened. "Then let's make it worth it." 2 weeks had passed since John's arrest. The city, once ruled in whispers by his name, had begun to breathe again. Businesses reopened, old debts were forgotten, and for the first time in years, people walked the streets without fear. James sat in the police station's evidence room, going through the remnants of John's empire: photos, ledgers, phone records. Each item told a story, each detail a reminder of just how deep the corruption had run. T. Diep entered quietly. "They found something," she said. James looked up, surprised. "What?" She handed him a flash drive. It was hidden in a safe deposit box under a false name. Tung insisted we check it. James plugged it into the computer, and a series of encrypted files popped up. One video played automatically. The screen flickered, then John appeared, seated in a dark room, speaking directly to the camera. "If you're watching this," John said, his voice calm but cold, "it means I've been betrayed. But you should know, I was never the only one. There's someone else, bigger, older, hidden." James froze. John continued, "Everything I did was part of a larger design. I was a player, not the game master. And if they think this ends with me, they're fools." The screen cut to black. Across the city, Tung stood alone on a rooftop, watching the skyline. He felt no peace. Turning and John had brought only silence, not closure. The air around him buzzed not with sound, but with unease. His phone rang. A voice, unrecognizable, said only one thing: "You chose your side. Now pray it was the right one." The line went dead. Later that night, T. Diep, James, and Tung met in the old safe house where their story had first begun. The air was heavy with tension. "So he wasn't working alone," James said, replaying the video again. "We thought we cut off the head, but maybe we only wounded the beast." Tung clenched his fists. "I can't believe I was part of something even bigger, something I didn't see." "You left in time," T. Diep said. "You still have a chance to help stop this." James nodded. "Whatever this is, we end it together." And outside, under the veil of night, a black car sat idling down the street. Inside, a figure watched them through tinted windows, a thin smile playing on their lips. The game wasn't over, it was just beginning. James nodded. "Whatever this is, we end it together." And outside, under the veil of night, a black car sat idling down the street. Inside, a figure watched them through tinted windows, a thin smile playing on their lips. The game wasn't over, it was just beginning. It also reminds us that evil rarely works alone. Sometimes, what we see on the surface is just a small part of something far more dangerous. To fight such shadows, we need unity, wisdom, and the bravery to keep searching for the truth no matter the cost. In the end, the most important lesson is this: justice may be slow and painful, but it begins the moment someone dares to stand up and say, "Enough." This story also highlights how fragile human relationships can be when built on assumptions and silence. The misunderstanding between James and Tu Diep could have destroyed their bond forever, but their willingness to listen and forgive became the foundation for healing. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is the strength to see beyond pain and rebuild trust. Tung's internal battle shows how people are not born evil. They are shaped by choices, circumstances, and fear. Yet, he proved that redemption is possible when we choose conscience over comfort and justice over loyalty to the wrong people. His betrayal of John was not an act of revenge, it was a painful but necessary decision to protect others and make peace with his own soul. Through these characters, we learn that even in a world full of lies and betrayal, there's always room for hope if we are brave enough to seek the truth and humble enough to admit our mistakes. True strength is not in never falling, but in rising after the fall and helping others rise with you. Another powerful lesson from this story is the importance of courage, both in facing the truth and in standing up for what is right, even when it means going against those we once trusted. Tung's decision to cooperate with the police was not easy. It cost him friendships, safety, and a part of his past, but it also gave him something more meaningful: the chance to finally do the right thing. Moral integrity often comes at a high price, but it is what separates a life of regret from a life of redemption. Tung's transformation reminds us that no one is beyond saving, as long as they have the courage to change. On the other hand, the restored connection between James and Tu Diep teaches us that truth can heal what silence has broken. Their reunion shows the value of honest communication and how love, once buried under pain and misunderstanding, can bloom again when nurtured with truth and compassion. In a world full of shadows and secrets, this story reminds us that light can only return when we stop hiding from it and begin walking toward it together.